Great. Good evening, everyone. The time is 6:30, and I'll now call this public hearing to order of the Board of Selectmen. So I'm going to read the legal notice as it was published in the River East. It was published August 23rd, 2024 in the River East. And this is a legal notice of public hearing, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut. Town of Portland, notice of public hearing regarding loan from State of Connecticut Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program for engineering, design, and construction costs related to the town's drinking water infrastructure in order to implement a new water source for the town's water supply system. The Board of Selectmen of the Town of Portland, Connecticut, the town, shall hold a public hearing on Wednesday, September 4th, 2024, at the Buck Foreman Community Room, 265 Main Street, Portland, Connecticut, at 6:30 p.m. to obtain public comments and questions regarding a proposal to appropriate $6 million for engineering, design, and construction costs related to the town's drinking water infrastructure in order to implement a new water source for the town's water supply system, the project, and to authorize the issuance of the town's bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $6 million to finance the appropriation or so much thereof as may be necessary after deducting grants to be received for the project. The bonds or notes may be in the form of project loan obligations issued to the State of Connecticut under the state's Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program. Public access also through Zoom link A at portlandct.org. A copy of the complete resolution to be voted on is available for public inspection at the town clerk's office and on the town's website at portlandct.org. Dated at Portland, Connecticut, this 21st day of August 2024. Attest Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman. So this is a public hearing. We've been talking about water for a long time. You may recall recently at a special town meeting, the electors in town voted to appropriate funding for the next phase of the well, which was drilling a production well. And this $6 million proposal that we're talking about today is for the third and final phase. That would be the treatment center and also connecting the well into our existing system. And so that's what we're talking about today. And we've received a lot of positive news from DPH lately, and it is highly likely that this funding would be eligible for the DWSRF loan, which would be a low interest 2% loan that the town would be able to pay back over time, and it would be paid back by water customers only. So this would not affect and this is why we want to make sure we get the word out for the referendum question in November, that it's not the taxpayers as a whole, it would be the water customers that are paying back this loan over a 20, 30-year period. And we will offset the funds that we use to purchase water from MDC today outweigh the cost of the interest rate payment. And so it's estimated that our payment on the DWSRF loan would be approximately $300,000 a year, where we currently pay MDC over $800,000 a year. So the savings to the town of Portland is estimated to be at least $500,000 and likely would rise over time. And so from a business sense, I think the Board of Selectmen felt as though this makes good business sense, and that's why we're bringing this to the electors and the taxpayers of Portland. So with that, if anyone would like to comment publicly as questions or anything, please come up to the podium, just state your name and address, and we'll do our best to answer any questions or anything. Don't everyone jump up at once.
I can probably add just a couple of
Sure,
quick points.
yeah.
I believe that also part of that program that would give us the low interest loan would also result in a 25% grant. So right off the top, it makes the project less expensive for us to move forward. And the second, what the first selectman noted in terms of the savings, that $800,000, which right now we budget $815, versus the 300, which is, I think, appropriately conservative, but the actual estimate is about $276,000, doesn't include any future increases, one of which, and I think this is worth noting, is that we've had some conversation with MDC about future plans. And one of the items that has been noted to us is that right now we buy 400,000 gallons a day. That's our take-or-pay contract for 146 million gallons. They're looking for us to buy more of the water that they hold in reserve, which right now would mean going up to about 650,000 gallons a day. That works out to $481,000. So when we look at the savings, we try to be conservative in terms of what we're presenting to the ratepayers, but the actual delta between what the well in progress, in service would save versus the future cost is actually going to be greater than what we're talking about.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, thank you, Jim. Ryan, do you have anything to add?
We'll cover it pretty good. If you'd like, I can come up.
Yeah, well, I think it's okay. There's a second public comment in the special town meeting that will be following this, so I do want to make sure, is anyone online? I don't see anyone online that would comment.
No.
Okay, and I'll give another round out in the audience. Does anyone want to comment? Oh, Kathy, would you like to come up?
Do I have to come up?
Yeah, please, just so the microphone can capture it. And name and address, thank you.
Kathy Heron, 23 Old Homestead Village. Just curious about the time frame. If the referendum passes, when would the water be available through this new system?
That's a great question, and we're working on it. I signed the amendment with our hydrogeologist firm, GZA, a couple weeks ago, and that is for the next phase, that production well that I talked about. And that is anticipated to be drilled hopefully in October. I'm not sure if can we commit to October yet? The timeline is we're shooting for October. If it's November, that could happen. But we're trying to get that production well drilled and ready to go very quickly. And then there's pump testing, there's additional testing that's required with that. But if this does pass at referendum, DPH has indicated that they would be looking at that affirmative vote at a referendum as a positive sign that the voters in Portland want this project, and that is a trigger for the DWSRF funds. And so we would have to work with our partners at the state level, but it's anticipated, the goal is to get this by January 2026. Is that a lofty goal? It may be. And so we are talking with MDC about contract extension that would get us through the interim. But that's kind of where we're at. So ideally, we're a couple years out, but it could take maybe 3 years. It's hard to say exactly.
Sure. Okay, and where is this well, or where would the well be?
Sure, it's just north of the Portland Recreational Complex.
Okay.
So if you go to the park and you're at the I guess it would be the fitness station. Yeah, past the fitness station and the furthest away baseball field, past the outfield. There's a clearing that GZA cleared last summer where we drilled 2 test wells. And so it would be, the production well would be in that area.
Great. Overall, it sounds great. I'm not on town water, but I'm all for things that will make the town a better place to be, so.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else? Going once? All right, well, if there's no one else for public comment, we'll close the public hearing at 6:40 p.m. And now directly following this is a special town meeting. So our town clerk, Michael Tierney, will be coming up in 5 minutes. At 6:45 is the special town meeting. So we'll have a brief intermission. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. Time is 6:45, and we'll begin the special town meeting. I'll just say, any Portland resident that came in, there's a orange clipboard there, if you could just write your name down for the town meeting. There is no vote tonight, so there's no slips handed out, because we'll be referring this to the referendum in November. But we'll still be doing the town meeting, so. I will call the meeting to order at 6:46 p.m. The first order of business is to elect a moderator. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Sean Manning.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Oh, you did that? I didn't hear you. It was 5.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Are there any other nominations? Is there?
Move nominations be closed. I'll second that.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Aye. Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Michael. I would like next to read the call of the meeting into the record as published in the Middletown Press on Friday, August 23rd, 2024. I would also ask that the town clerk record the return of notice and resolution along with the minutes of this meeting. Legal notice of special town meeting Wednesday, September 4th, 2024, and referendum vote Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. The electors and those persons eligible to vote in town meetings of the town of Portland, Connecticut, are hereby warned and notified that a special town meeting will be held at the Buck Foreman Community Room, 265 Main Street, Portland, Connecticut, on Wednesday, September 4th, 2024, at 6:45 p.m. for the following purpose. Item 1, to discuss the resolution. To appropriate $6 million for engineering, design, and construction costs related to the town's drinking water infrastructure in order to implement a new water source for the town's water supply system. B, to finance said appropriation by issuing bonds or notes in an amount not to exceed $6 million, which bonds or notes may be in the form of project loan obligations issued to the state of Connecticut under the state's Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Program. C, to authorize the first selectman, deputy first selectman, and director of finance, or any two of them, to determine the terms, conditions, and other details of the bonds or notes. D, to declare the town's intent to finance the project so that the project cost may be temporarily advanced, to authorize the first selectman, deputy first selectman, and director of finance, or any two of them, enter into agreements to bind the town in connection with financing the project, and to determine that, if necessary, financing of the project on a taxable basis is the public interest. And E, to authorize the first selectman, deputy first selectman, and director of finance, or any two of them, to apply for and accept or reject grants in aid for the project, and to authorize the first selectman to execute agreements and other documents on behalf of the town of the project and the financing of the project. A copy of the complete resolution to be voted on is available for public inspection in the town clerk's office and on the town website, www.portlandct.org. The moderator shall adjourn the special meeting at its conclusion, and the above item required by section 1204 of the town charter shall be submitted to a referendum vote on the voting tabulators or paper ballots by town electors and qualified voters for approval or disapproval on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Item 1 above shall be placed upon the voting tabulators or paper ballots under the following heading. Question 1. Shall the town of Portland appropriate $6 million for engineering, design, and construction costs related to the town's drinking water infrastructure in order to implement a new water source for the town's water supply system and authorize the issuance of bonds or notes of the town in any amount not to exceed $6 million to finance their appropriation or so much as may be necessary after deducting grants to be received for the project. Yes or no? Voters approving the resolution will vote yes, and those opposing said resolution will vote no. Voters qualified to vote who are not electors shall vote at the Portland Middle School, 93 High Street, Portland, Connecticut, in accordance with the procedures contained in Section 9-369D of the Connecticut General Statute, which procedures the town hereby chooses to apply. Absentee ballots will be available in the town's clerk office. Dated at Portland, Connecticut, this 21st day of August 2024, attest Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman. I would now like to entertain a motion to introduce the resolution entitled, Resolution to Appropriate $6 million for engineering, design, and construction costs related to the town's drinking water infrastructure in order to implement a new water source for the town's water supply system and to authorize an issuance of bonds or notes of the town in any amount not to exceed $6 million to finance the appropriation or so much as may be necessary after deducting grants to be received for the project.
So moved.
Was that a motion to, also to waive the reading?
It wasn't, but it can be.
Yeah.
Yes. You agree?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I will now call for discussion. Anyone from the public? Hearing none. I will close public comment. Sean, being no further discussion, the town meeting is adjourned until the referendum on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, held at 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. at the Portland Middle School, 93 High Street. Early voting will also be available at the Portland Town Hall, 33 East Main Street, starting on October 21st and ending November 3rd. Absentee ballots will be available in the town clerk's office during regular business hours starting on October 4th. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second? All,
Yeah, all in favor.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is closed at 6:53 p.m.
Put it in the archives.
Are we done?
That's it. That's it. There's no vote. It takes all the fun out of it.
I know. I don't
Good evening, everyone. The time is 7 p.m., and I will now call this financial meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. Before the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to turn it over to Selectman Dillon.
I asked First Selectman Curley, I think it's important that we take a moment, just a brief moment here to recognize what happened this afternoon in Georgia, at a high school in Georgia where there was another shooting, and just to remember the families of the victims and those involved, and I'd just like to take a brief moment of silence. Thank you.
And Selectman Tripp, you.
Yeah, and in addition, this past weekend, we actually lost one of our citizens that was deeply, deeply involved in the community for decades. Howard Rosenbaum passed away. He served, in many capacities in our community, gave a lot of himself to our community, including he served on our Board of Education, our Board of Selectmen. He was a founding member of the Brownstone Quorum and served basically, he was a member right up until his passing. And of late, even though he had stepped back from some of the more public aspects, he was serving as on the Gildersleeve Fund, which helps and does a tremendous amount of work helping our schools. Tremendous asset, a tremendous loss to the town, and I would also ask for a moment of silence just to remember Howard. Thank you.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on tonight's agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. I do have a few additions to the agenda this evening. So one of the items that we're going to have one of my favorite parts of my job is a swearing-in ceremony, which will take place in just a moment under communications and correspondence. And the selectmen have a proclamation after that in their packets, and this is to acknowledge this is upcoming National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. We were asked to endorse that proclamation, so that'll be after that. And there's going to be a new item 8 on tonight's agenda. Selectman Dillon had asked for informational material related to the upcoming bonding referendum to be added to the agenda, and so that'll be item 8 on tonight's agenda. And then I'd like to have a discussion with the Board of Selectmen regarding the transfer station and a potential waiver for the residents of Job's Pond that were impacted on the flooding for some relief from the transfer station for fees while they dispose of some of the items in their basements that were flooded. And so that would be item 9. And then appointments to boards and commissions would become item 10, and then so on. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
I make a motion to accept the agenda as
second it.
amended.
Thank you, Sean, Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. All right, the next item is the approval of minutes from our regular meeting on August 21st, 2024. Has everyone been able to review those minutes?
Yes, I make a motion we accept those.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you both. Any errors, changes, or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next up is communications and correspondence, and as I mentioned, this is a privilege for me to be able to do. We have a new officer that is coming to town, not from very far away. He grew up in East Hampton. His name is Donald R. Scranton II, and so I'm going to invite Donald up, and I'm going to give him the oath of office. So come on up, Donald, and if you want to bring your family, it was welcome to come on up if you want to take pictures. Let's come up. We're going to make sure we're on camera here.
Do you want me to take a picture? Do you want me to take a picture of you?
Yep, just move over your seat. You want to make sure you're right. There you go. All right, and I need you to raise your right hand for me. Donald R. Scranton II. You do solemnly swear that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the United States of America and the state of Connecticut, and that you will support the Constitution and laws thereof, and you will, to the best of your skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute and perform all duties incumbent on you as police officer in the town of Portland, according to the Constitution and the laws of this state.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Donald. Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Actually, I'm Oh, anyway, hold on, we gotta get our police captain in here too.
He went home. He's on double time.
Print your name there and sign there and then
Joining a great group over here. Thank you. And thank you to the officers that are all here today. And for those who came for the swearing in, you don't have to stay for the whole meeting.
Although you are all welcome.
But you're welcome to stay. You don't have to. I think a call just came in, huh?
That budget should be doing pretty good then.
Ryan, what does this put us at for officers now?
Now, Donald will be our 11th officer right now, and
Yep.
so I believe Captain Cunningham and I just spoke. We do have a candidate that would make 12, and then, as you know, in the budget, we did fund that 13th officer that would start in a half year, January 1. So we're still looking for that position.
What's his expected date to finish the academy and?
Which, talk
So
about that.
Donald is
Someone else.
actually a transfer. So
Okay.
Donald was an officer in Massachusetts. So similar to Officer Justin. It's Justin's
From New
last
Jersey.
name. Yeah, yes, very similar. Where there's just some training that we'll have to just to catch up with Connecticut's laws.
Okay.
So it won't be as long, nearly for that. So
Good.
Don will be out helping out the town in no time.
Good.
So, great. Thank you. So moving on in your packets, you have that proclamation regarding the National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week.
Would you like it read?
I mean, if you'd like to read it, yeah, why not?
They're short. Proclamation National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, September 16th through 20th, 2024. Whereas more than 43 million Americans cannot read or write at the most basic level, while 62.7 million lack basic math skills, as well as the credentials and skills necessary to succeed in post-secondary education. And whereas according to the National Reporting System in 2023, there were 12,202 adults 18 to 64 without a high school diploma and unemployed, 70,518 not in the labor force, and 40,572 on public assistance. And whereas nationally, every year, 1 in 3 young adults drops out of high school, and in Connecticut, it is estimated over 119,000 youth, 18 to 24, have left school over the last 3 years. And whereas in Connecticut, there are 120,195 adults, 18 and older, who do not speak English well or at all. And whereas in 2023-2024, Connecticut's adult education programs provided support for just under 30,000 adult learners. And whereas adult education programs contribute to solving these challenges by helping Americans move along the continuum in their educational journey to achieve basic skills and get prepared for career and college. And whereas adult education in Connecticut offers low-cost, high-value programs in every community focused on providing a high school credential, citizenship training, English as a second language, digital literacy, and workforce development skills designed to elevate the economic self-sufficiency of our citizens. And whereas Connecticut celebrates Adult Education and Family Literacy Week as a proud participant in the National Educate and Evaluate campaign and Elevate campaign, which helps our citizens learn about all of their adult education options to obtain their professional and personal goals. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman of the Town of Portland, Connecticut, hereby proclaim September 16th through 2024 as Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the seal of Portland to be affixed this 4th day of September in the year 2024 by Ryan J. Curley, First Selectman, Town of Portland, Connecticut. Board of Selectmen John H. Dillon, Michael S. Hernandez, Robert W. Hetrick Jr., Sean P. Manning, Michael A. Pilton, and James K. Tripp.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. An important cause. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 6 on tonight's agenda is public comment. I know we have a presentation in the next public comment, right?
At your service.
Okay, it's on the agenda that way, so why don't we, is anyone else here that would like to comment publicly? Is anyone online? Okay, there will be a second public comment later in the evening. So the next item is a discussion on the town's purchasing policy, rules and regulations. This was brought up by Selectman Manning at our last regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. And in your packets, I did go through our current purchasing rules and regulations, and you will notice it has been some time since the Board of Selectmen took any action to change any of the dollar amounts in our purchasing policy. And really, it's been 20 years, over 20 years. January 15th, 2004 was the last time a Board of Selectmen changed any of the numbers in our purchasing policy. And so really what I did, being that it's been 20 years, and as you know, inflation has, especially in the past few years, has risen quite a bit, I really just plugged in all of the numbers into an inflation calculator from 2004 to 2024 to try to bring up the dollar amount thresholds to an equivalent for today as it would have been when it was last adopted in 2004. So I'm not looking, and I don't know, it's, obviously it's for the board's discussion. I think it would be prudent to make those changes, but not go any farther than that and to set and stay in that consistent policy with what was adopted back in 2004. So if you look on this, I will go through what I am proposing. So, and I guess I'll read this. So the town charter requires the Board of Selectmen to establish purchasing rules and regulations to govern the purchasing of all town departments, offices, boards, agencies, and commissions. Such rules and regulations shall also include an amount to be set annually by the board above, with sealed bids shall be required. Purchasing rules and regulations are designed to assure that all vendors and those who might provide goods and services to the town will be treated fairly and given a chance to compete for town business. This is especially important when considering that many potential vendors are also taxpayers. Competitive bidding also reduces and can even eliminate the appearance of favoritism or impropriety when purchases are made direct from vendors without benefit of bidding. In a municipality, it is important to avoid such appearances since tax dollars are involved. It is recognized that there are times when competitive bidding may not be in the best interest of the town. That's in section 1208 of the town charter, and it recognizes this and authorizes the Board of Selectmen to waive competitive bidding when deemed in the best interest of the town. In all instances, these rules and regulations presume that the item, materials, goods, or services to be procured have been included in the annual operating budget approved by the Board of Selectmen. Requests to purchase items which are not budgeted are to be made only after approval by the Board of Selectmen. Requests to purchase an item that is not budgeted from funds budgeted for another purpose shall require the approval of the Board of Selectmen. In no instance shall items be purchased unless there are sufficient unencumbered funds in the account to cover the cost of the purchases or purchase. It is for this reason that all requests for purchasing must be processed through the Finance Department. The role of the Finance Department includes the following. 1, to assure that items to be purchased are included in the approved budget. 2, to assure the greatest degree of competitive bidding, balancing quality with competitive pricing. And 3, to assure that there are sufficient funds to cover the prospective purchases. For purposes of these rules and regulations, department shall include all boards, agencies, offices, commissions, and such cost centers as are established within the Board of Education. Oh, excuse me, I skipped a page. Nope. Board of Education, i.e. individual schools, maintenance, superintendent's office, etc. Department head shall include department directors or their authorized representative, board, agency, and commission chairpersons, program directors, school principals, etc. When a department head authorizes a representative to sign on his behalf, such authorization shall be made in writing to the finance director. Specific rules and regulations. So this is where all of that I read, there's no changes, that's just boilerplate. Item 1, department heads are authorized to make direct purchases of items up to an amount of, now previously it said $300 or less without prior Department of Finance approval. I am proposing an increase from $300 to $500. These purchases are for budgeted items of an ongoing nature, such as replacement parts for trucks and equipment, stationery supplies, miscellaneous hardware, etc., with a limit of $1,000 is the old number from any one vendor for like items, and I am proposing to increase from $1,000 to $1,500 equipment any one vendor for like items. If the $1,500 limit is to be reached during the year, a purchase order will be written to the vendor. Books purchased by the library and Board of Education are not covered by the $1,500 limit in this section, and that's because they buy so many books from the same company. Payment will be made from a vendor's invoice properly signed as to the receipt of the goods or services and approved by the department head or other authorized individual. For purchases of from, and the old number was $301 to $1,500. And I am proposing that we modify that from $301 to $501 and from $1,500 to $2,500. The Department of Finance will authorize purchases upon receipt from the purchasing department of 3 verbal quotes. If the delivery of the item is immediate and of not more than, again, $500 was the old number, and I'm proposing we increase that threshold to $800, a purchase order will not be written unless the vendor requires one. When the delivery is not immediate and for all items in excess of $800, a purchase order will be prepared and mailed to the vendor. For purchases requiring a purchase order, payment will be made following the presentation of the vendor's invoice and the return of the green copy of the purchase order properly approved by the purchasing department. Item 3. For purchases of single items with a dollar threshold, and the old amount was $1,501 to $9,999, the Department of Finance will authorize purchases upon receipts of 3 written quotes. And so what I'm proposing is to increase the threshold from $1,501 to $2,501, so $2,501, and then $9,999 would be increased to $14,999. So anything between that threshold would require 3 written quotes. The Department of Finance could at any time require sealed bids in lieu of written quotes. A purchase order shall be prepared and mailed to the vendor before goods and services are provided. Items such as fuel, oil, and gasoline, which are bid with multiple options, should be brought to the Board of Selectmen before the bid is awarded. Payment to the vendor shall be made upon receipt of the vendor's invoice and the return of the green copy of the purchase order properly approved by the department making the purchase. 4, for all single or extended purchases of greater than, the old number was $10,000, and I'm proposing to increase that to $15,000 or more, sealed bids shall be required and purchase orders issued. Extended purchases include items such as gasoline and fuel oil, service contracts, stationery supplies, etc., that are delivered over a period of time. Payment will be made upon receipt of the vendor's invoice and return of the green copy of the purchase order properly receipted and approved. For ongoing purchases, payment will be made upon receipt of vendor's invoice and receipt of the delivery ticket properly receipted and approved. Bulk items such as fuel, oil, and gasoline, which are to be delivered at intervals, shall be bid on the total estimated use of such item and shall not be divided to avoid these rules and regulations. Purchasing through the State of Connecticut purchasing system extended to municipalities is to be encouraged. 6, the Department of Finance will endeavor to establish vendors for commonly used items such as office supplies, custodial supplies, tires, tubes, gasoline, fuel, oil, light bulbs, etc. All departments will be expected to purchase such items from established vendors. 7, emergency purchases are purchases or repairs necessary to maintain effective and efficient operations or to correct an immediate safety hazard. Such purchases and repairs may be made from a vendor who can provide the goods or services necessary to make the repairs or alleviate the emergency. The Director of Finance shall be notified of all emergency purchases. Notification shall be made in advance whenever possible. Payment will be made on presentation of vendor's invoice and approval by the appropriate department head. Confirming orders for purchases already made are to be used only under emergency conditions. Item 8, goods and services from a single source vendor, i.e. electricity, telephone, advertising, legal notices, etc., shall be paid upon receipt of vendor's invoice and approval by the appropriate department head. It shall be the responsibility of the department head to review invoices to ensure that invoices contain proper charges to the town. Item 9, expenditures not requiring a purchase order include the following, for which an internal payment voucher shall be submitted for payment: petty cash reimbursements, mileage reimbursements, travel to and attendance at conferences, business meetings, and postage. Dues to professional associations, subscriptions to newspapers, magazines, and professional journals, insurance payments, judgments and claims, social service payments, debt service payments of principal and interest, miscellaneous payments to named organizations in the budget, i.e. the Visiting Nurses Association, etc. Clothing allowances when paid on a monthly basis. Item 10, competitive bidding shall not be required for professional services such as lawyers, architects, engineers, and other licensed professionals. In such cases, the Director of Finance shall negotiate fees for services. In such cases, requests for proposals shall be solicited. Item 11, the town is exempt from the sales and use tax of the state of Connecticut. All departments are expected to assure that the town does not pay sales taxes. Sales tax exemption forms are available from the Office of the Director of Finance for those who need such forms. Item 12, when recurring purchases such as miscellaneous hardware supplies are to be made from a single vendor, a blanket purchase order is to be established for such goods and services. The purchase order shall read, for the purchase of miscellaneous hardware supplies not to exceed X dollars. Such purchase orders are to be established where the cost of individual orders might not exceed the cost guidelines set forth in number 1 of these rules, but whose cumulative cost over a year will exceed such guidelines. Amounts can increase when necessary. Item 13, certain departments have petty cash funds. These funds are to be used for minor purchases when it would be inappropriate or untimely to issue a check. Requests for the establishment of petty cash funds shall be made to the Director of Finance. Use of petty cash includes postage due charges, emissions control fees, business lunches, attendance at professional meetings, mileage reimbursement, parking reimbursement, and purchases of supplies from local stores of a minor nature. All expenditures from petty cash must be supported by receipts or other documentation. These receipts shall be forwarded to the Finance Department where petty cash is to be replenished. At all times, expenditure, receipts, and cash on hand must equal the amount of the petty cash advance. Petty cash is subject to periodic audit by the Finance Department and annually by the town's independent auditor. Item 14, all purchases shall be made on the standard Town of Portland purchase order except for amounts of less than, and then this is the $500 amount that I'm proposing. When a purchase order is not issued, and in those instances where a purchase order is not required by these rules and regulations. Item 15, bid specifications for items to be purchased together with the estimated amount of purchases shall be developed by a requesting department in consultation with the Finance Department. Purchase orders shall be prepared by each department for its own purchases except for sealed bids when the Finance Department shall prepare the order. Item 16, the Town of Portland specifically reserves the right to reject any and all bids if deemed to be in the best interest of the town. The town shall also reserve the right to waive any informalities in any of the bids, to extend the period of time for closing bids, and to award bids in any way that is in the best interest of the town. 17, the Director of Finance is authorized to establish purchasing schedules for commodities and services used by more than one department, commission, board, agency, or office of the town. Item 18, contracts and purchases of up to and including $1,000, now this is per charter, so that will not change, shall he authorize the Director of Finance, and in his absence by the, I'm proposing to change First Selectwoman to First Selectman, contracts and purchases of more than $1,000 shall be authorized by the Director of Finance and the First Selectman. Item 19, in the event that an award is not to be made to the lowest bidder that meets all specifications, the matter shall be referred to the Board of Selectmen for review before a bid acceptance letter is sent. The matter shall also be referred to the Board of Education on matters relating to educational matters only. Item 20, in awarding bids, the Director of Finance, after consultation with the department for which the bid was issued, may do any of the following. A, award the contract purchase to the lowest responsible bidder who meets all specifications. B, may reject all bids. Or C, may negotiate further with such bidders as the Director of Finance deems appropriate, and award the contract purchase on the basis of 1, availability of the item or service, and 2, the lowest price available. It is understood that the Finance Director shall never negotiate further with other bidders whose original price and quote was higher than that of another bidder, without negotiating with all such bidders whose original price quotes were lower. Any such awards under this section shall be reported to the First Selectman and the Board of Selectmen before bid acceptance letter is sent. Item 21, insurance certificates and the amounts of required coverage shall be determined by the Director of Finance in consultation with the department concerned with the bid. Insurance certificates shall hold the town harmless and shall indemnify the town, workers' compensation, property damage, and general liability. Performance issuance shall be required when necessary. Item 22, the Board of Selectmen shall have the right to amend these rules and regulations at any time and may waive any of these regulations when deemed to be in the best interest of the town to do so, consistent with the town charter. So, I know it was very long, but I do think, having been 20 years, it's worth reading into the record. So, with that, I'll open it up to discussion.
I just have one question. I think you're off to a good start with some of these numbers, where we are now. Just the cost of some of the things that we run into. When we sign like a contract with Perfect Temp or one of those companies, do we put that go out to bid for a specific amount of years? Like, we have contracts with like, different, like HVAC companies and that sort of thing. Is it specified in the bid how many years we're looking for the contract, or do we go out to bid every year, or does he follow that and then?
As long as it's if it's deemed in the best interest of the town to continue an existing contract, we will continue an existing contract.
Okay.
There are not time limits for that, so we do extend contracts.
Ryan, I agree that it's been way overdue, that these numbers need to be updated and changed and increased. My only question is, have the department heads seen these numbers yet? Because none of us do any of the purchasing for the town. These are just numbers to us. We don't really have a say in what gets purchased. I would like to know what each department head thinks of these numbers, because they're the ones actually out there doing the purchasing. These numbers may look good to us, but not look good to them.
It might not make a difference to them.
So I would like the draft of this to go out to each department head to review, and then maybe go talk to Ryan, their supervisor, and say, yeah, we can manage with these numbers, and then we would vote on it. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's right for us to like make this decision. I think the department heads need to discuss it,
Well, I think,
and then come back to us.
I think that we, being the overseers of those departments, should make the policy typically. I mean, we look for guidance from employees, but I think what I try to do with this is to just be mindful of what we've had in place for a very long time, and to bring those dollar thresholds up, but to not go farther than that. I think what I would recommend is, I would recommend the board move forward with adopting these updated regulations tonight, and then reach out and see how those work, and reach out to remember, we can do this at any time. We can always update the purchasing rules and regulations. I think it's best to be prudent with those thresholds now, and then go from there. I did talk with our Public Works Director about this. He actually helped go through this with me. I know there's some department heads that it's challenging. It is challenging, but you have to, sometimes with our purchasing rules, but you do have to remember that we work for a public entity, and so we need to be very careful with taxpayer dollars, and make sure that we are always acting in the best interest of the town. And so my recommendation would be to move forward with this tonight, and then revisit it again to see if things are working, and we can talk with department heads. Every department head was mailed or sent this via email out as well, so they are seeing this.
If we approve this tonight, aren't we locked into this?
No. The
Even though
last,
the charter says once.
no,
I thought the charter says that we vote on it once per year.
no, item 22, the last thing I read. The Board of Selectmen shall have the right to amend these rules and regulations at any time, and may waive any of these regulations when deemed to be in the best interest of the town to do so, consistent with the town charter. So this is, yeah, I mean, that would be my recommendation, because it's been so long. But I just would want to be careful that we don't go further than that. But
I just know the main complaint I was getting for the past few years, and it wasn't, I didn't do this for any one department, I did it from just hearing people talk, was the purchase order number, $300 at this time, you can't buy a diamond saw blade for that, I don't think. And that was a number that kept coming up, was that number. It was so low, and I really don't know if, I'm not there, but, I mean, I guess we'll just start there. But I just feel that, that's the thing that is it the number, or is it just the process in getting the purchase order in a timely fashion? I guess that's what needs to be asked of these people that are chirping.
So I just double checked today. I do want to point out, I went through all of this with their town attorney, who did say that this is in compliance, the proposed changes are in compliance with their town charter and state regulations and statutes. And I just plugged in just to double check what $300 in 2004 would be the equivalent of today with an inflation calculator, and that it came out to $507. So I rounded to 500. That's where I got the $500 from. So I know it's believe me, I remember being town clerk and having to follow these policies, and it can be cumbersome and often difficult, but that's why we're increasing it. That's why we're here. And I just want to be careful that we don't do too much. That's all.
I guess we could, I don't.
We can say, we don't have to take any action today
right,
if you
well,
don't want to.
I'm in favor
Well,
of
I'd
taking
rather-
action
I-
tonight, just to get the ball rolling, but
Right.
I would also like to have heard from Ryan after talking to the department heads, if they're all in agreement with these numbers, and then I'd be like, then it just stays. If they'd like to see $550, I don't know. I think they're the ones that are doing the purchasing, so I feel like they need a little bit of a say in
I
this.
think we should listen more to the finance director than department heads, to be honest. I mean, that's why, for auditing purposes and all that, we need to be careful with our procurement and make sure that we're not overreaching, that's all. I wouldn't, and nothing against department heads, it's just, at the end of the day, we, the administrators, are the ones responsible.
Right.
Yeah, but, I don't know, still, the people out there doing the work should have a little bit of a say. I mean, I understand where you're trying to keep it in control, but I think you should listen to them too at the same time. I don't think you should make a decision without hearing from them.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? You don't have to, at the end of the day, listen, do what they say. I just think you should hear what they have to say.
I just think the biggest thing I'm hearing is, there was an email sent out that I read, it was the amount of purchase orders for some of the smaller stuff. And I've heard in the past that for some of the things, it takes a while to get a purchase order. And we're not looking at a $3,000 item. But like I said, there's three sides to every story. There's his, and the truth. So I think this is a good start. It brings us out of the, where we were 20 years ago, and generally gets us out of pre-COVID and post-COVID a little.
I think if you look at number 2, I think that'll address it more, where Ryan increased
Right.
from 300 to 500 and from 1,500 to 2,500.
That's the big,
That'll speed things up because you're not even asking for a written quote, just verbal quotes.
right. And that was the other thing, was the verbal, the written quotes at the lower threshold.
That might make it a lot easier for department heads just in that one section
Right.
with that increase.
Like I said, I think overall, it's a great start. I mean, even if you look at 3, from 2,501 to 14,999, for a written quote, I think that's a good start there too. I think that's trust me, it doesn't take long for $100 to reach 1,000 and 1,000 to hit 10,000. I know that, but I think we're making some serious progress here with especially 2 and 3.
Well, I think it indexes the most problematic number, which is the 300 threshold, by 67%, which I think is good. It's going to minimize, it'll minimize some of the hours where we're paying people to get quotes that they probably don't need to get. And I think to me, that's where the offset is.
Right.
I think if you look at all the numbers were indexed between 50 and 67%, where we could, obviously with the limitations of the charter, right, we're restricted, we didn't. That's probably a good starting point, and I think while the charter recommends we look at this every year, we certainly could look at this in 6 months and see, a good conversation would be, as we're gearing up even with talking to all our department heads about budgets, right, and get feedback in those preliminaries, and see how it's working.
That's a great idea.
But being incremental is probably our best approach right now, to stay sort of fiscally responsible.
And I think if the most important in item 1 is to try to raise that $300 threshold, I wouldn't want to put off anything and belabor the increase of that threshold amount. At $500, as Jim said, it's like, what, 67% increase. You run it down to the hardware store for some nuts and bolts on a repair on a truck, that couple $100 would make a difference. I don't want to hold them up with that. But I do agree with Jim, too. There's nothing saying that we couldn't set this in motion, set it, for a future date in this year to look at it again, and then maybe we could actually have the finance director provide us with some statistical information as to how many items he received in a period of time that correspond with item 1 versus item 2 versus item 3. And then that would show, I would hope that would show us whether it's working or whether it needs to be tweaked again.
Right. I think it's a start. I think it's in the right direction. We have to, walk before we run, I guess, but I think it's from where we were, we're in a lot better shape, and I think, like Ryan said, we're accountable for the way the money's spent and to make sure it's being spent in a responsible way, and that we're just not going out and open up the floodgates and say, okay, you're going from 500,000, 300 will give you 5,000 with no PO. We can't do that.
And I think, Sean, right, again, because we've got that ability to look at this in 6 months, or, we've got that ability, we're not restricted. Being incremental allows us to take those steps.
And you never know, it might not even.
We may not even have to. This may solve a lot of the problems.
It'll definitely solve some.
Yeah.
It'll solve at least some, right?
I think we should. I'll make a motion that we adopt this.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, and so what I'll just say, I think, Jim, that's a great idea. During the budget process, let's roughly, 4 or 5 months from now, we'll talk with department heads, and we will gather feedback, and we can always revisit this again before another year is up. So I think that's a great idea. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. And there's another part of this, that's the purchasing rules and regulations of the town of Portland, Connecticut. And there's another item in your packet, and this is purchasing rules and regulations. And this is as it relates to Enterprise, which is our accounting software for the town. And all that's changed on here is that the purchases of up to, used to say $300 do not require a PO. Now that would be $500. So that change we just need to make because it's in line with the other policy. So entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we change that on purchasing rules, regulations, purchase orders.
Second by Mike. Discussion on that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. All right, thank you guys, and Sean, thank you for bringing that up. I think it was long overdue to look at that. All right, the next item on tonight's agenda is item 8, and this is informational material related to our upcoming bonding referendums. I think particularly the school is the focus of this. I spent some time and I put together, I went through the minutes of, and the motion that, John, you had proposed back in June. And what I did was I put out each of the questions and I answered them on, and there's a page in your packet, to the best of my abilities right now. And so, and I'm just gonna go through them all with you, and then afterwards we can ask questions and gather feedback. And so the first one, the total net combined budget and mill rate for fiscal year 2024 to 2025. Our total net combined budget is $40,050,813, and the mill rate is 34.3 for fiscal year 25. Proposed total school building project cost, gross and net anticipated. So as you know, the bonding referendum question is $68 million. Now, the cost to the town, that's still to be determined. And now I have a call with our bond counsel as well as our financial advisor and Dr. Britton tomorrow. I think Mike's going to join me as well. And really, we've gathered some more information about, as you know, or we had estimated the reimbursement rate from the state on this project to be 45% when we built the models. Now that has been solidified at 51% with an additional 5% due to the threshold of open choice being met. So now we're realistically looking at a 56% reimbursement rate. And so I'm looking for feedback from our financial advisor and bond counsel as to what we can realistically tell the residents of Portland this project will cost. So I'm going to have more information on that, John, tomorrow and very soon. Okay. So the way, just so you all understand, the absentee ballots are available beginning October 4th. And so I want to make sure that we have the informational material prior to that, prior to any votes being taken place. We want to make sure that our residents have the materials to make those decisions. So to be determined, meeting tomorrow on that.
I just have one question on that. When you talk to the number the state's giving you, the percentage, is that a number that's locked in right now? They can't change that from now to the election?
Correct, yeah, it came out in July.
So
for the year.
All right, okay.
Yes. I had the same question, so yeah. And I'll find out, there's a lot more, I have a lot of questions I want to ask tomorrow as well. But I just wanted to go through this because it's really, these are great questions, and I'm sure there's more that we'll think of.
I was going to say, one thing I think we do, and we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting, that 5% is based on open choice. I think the only question at the last meeting we weren't sure about was whether or not it's based on the open choice seats we make available or the open choice seats filled, right? So in other words, right, because based on how many of those seats students you have, that's the reimbursement. I do think we want to confirm, because that'll be important for how we present it, as to whether or not we currently make enough seats available where we would get the 5%. We currently have enough seats filled where we would get the 5%. But if enrollment were to drop in the year that we'd be looking for the reimbursement, could it drop to 4%, right? Yeah. I think we want to understand it. Is it enrollment versus seats made available? So that we can have that as an accurate discussion point.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jim. And so as I said, Dr. Britton's going to be there. That's one of his questions. He had sent an email out, but that's a great question. So I'll move on to the third item. The third was options for future action on closed school buildings and related fiscal impact. So that is a to be determined as well, because the Land and Building Usage Assessment Committee that's been meeting, I know Sean has been actively on that for months. Their work is coming to a close. They have a final report that they will be presenting and adopting. You may recall they did come to give us an update back in June, and it was really kind of fleshed out then, but this Monday is when I expect that a vote will be taken on that. And so that report really is going to be it's going to have the most information as far as what we would do with 2 decommissioned schools if the voters do approve that at referendum. So that's why I put it to be determined on there. And that meeting, for anyone who would like to attend, it'll be streamed on YouTube, and it'll also be here at the Buck Foreman Room on Monday, September 9th at 6 p.m. here. And so there's a Water and Sewer Commission meeting at 7 p.m. So I anticipate it's only going to take an hour max, because just so you know, well, we won't, you know, you can kick us out, Ryan. All right, item 4, secondary school costs for repairs enhancements, known and anticipated. So I put the numbers here. These are the numbers from Fryer Architecture, that in total they had a total combined cost of the secondary schools of $14,915,128. Now they did lump those into brackets, so some are more important than others. You know, some can go out as far as 10 years. So it's not that we need to do $15 million of work immediately, but there is $15 million of repairs and enhancements that have been identified within the next 10 years. And of that amount, Fryer estimates that $11,537,091 would be a cost to the town, would not be eligible for reimbursement from the state. So we would get roughly a $4 million reimbursement from the state on that. Item 5, bonding, anticipated new bonding costs versus adjustments for fully satisfied.
No, Ryan,
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt, but when we're doing this, looking at putting this together, that's one of the things as I was looking through, right, some of these numbers, they're good numbers, but we definitely need to make sure there's certain context. That's one of them that I would look at this, right? We would probably want to make sure that that's kind of fleshed out for folks a little bit, that, you know, the anticipated actual cost of the town is the 11 million, and that's over a 10-year period, like that's within the next 10 years. Otherwise, you know, those numbers can get very scary and very misleading. So
That's a good point. Yeah, this is just a rough draft. I wanted to just kind of show you what. Yeah, but that's a great point, Jim. Thank you. And so I'll move on then to item 5, bonding, anticipated new bonding costs versus adjustments for fully satisfied bonds. So in fiscal 2026, so in the next fiscal year, we have a lot of bonds, $574,299 in debt service falling off in the next fiscal year. So that's one of the reasons why it's an opportune time to look at a new bonding referendum, because we do have that debt falling off, which is over $500,000 of debt services falling off next year. And so, so that was a great question, and so thank you, John, for that. Item 6, general government and Board of Education employee contractual costs, known and anticipated. I mean, we have a contractual cost for the 4 town unions of 3% in fiscal year 26, and but the negotiations are ongoing with the Board of Education, so I don't have anything on the Board of Education right now. But I mean, I don't know if that's something that we want to put in, you know, but I know it was asked, so that is what is locked in with our 4 union contracts in fiscal year 2026. Item 7, Portland water source project cost. $6 million is what we just sent to referendum this evening, and the caveat to that is it is to be paid by town water users. So we do want to stress, Jim, to your point, that when we talk to voters, that that's not in addition to the school bonding. That would be paid back with the DWSRF loan over 20, 30 years, and it would be paid for by the water customers. So your normal taxpayer, if you're on water and if you're on a well and septic, you wouldn't be impacted at all by that.
Yeah. And also the net savings of not spending that money, right, in water.
Exactly. So I think we also have to relate that to a water informational
Exactly. That needs to be its own, because it's going to be its own question, I think.
Correct. Yeah. So, but that's just to, this is trying to be high level.
Let's
but
capture
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Item 8, water and maintenance enhancement costs, known and anticipated. This, I spoke with our Public Works Director, Ryan, who's here with us this evening about this. I mean, it's difficult. I took the dollar amounts directly from our capital plan from the latest fiscal year 2025 budget. And this is estimated water main replacement from capital plan for the next 5 years. We've anticipated ideally, now keep in mind what gets funded and what we identify are two different things, but we did identify a need for $7.5 million in water main replacements. Now, that's a very tall order, but that's what you asked.
And honestly, I did the same thing. I looked at our budget, I went to the capital items, and I wanted to make sure that we had an educated electorate, and they just understood the big picture. And I, of course, wasn't quite sure how you assign a number on that. You kind of did what my anticipation would be, but I just think this, my goal would be for this to prompt a couple more questions and have people doing some digging if that'll happen.
Well, it's also an opportunity when you look at the proposed increased cost to MDC, right, based on what we would potentially be looking at, and then you look at the savings when you look at the what the cost would be with the loan. That's actually how you fund that $7.5 million. That's what people have to understand. That's actually how you raise the money without raising rates, to fund the capital improvements. That's really what the goal is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's one of the goals, save people some money and actually be able to do the capital improvements we need to do in a timely manner.
Good point. Let's see, item 9, sewer maintenance enhancement costs, known and anticipated. Now, I put a to be determined on this because Ryan and I were talking this afternoon, and really, there's all sorts. You can go down a rabbit hole with our sanitation needs and our sewer needs, and so we are talking, and maybe we want to explore alternatives to that. That may save some money. And so before, it's a very loaded question and so we could do an entire report just on that alone. So that's why I put it to be determined there. But we all know that our sewer plant will need upgrades. That's not a question, it's a certainty. And it's just a matter of when, really.
Do we have any kind of idea if we stayed independent, what it would be?
Yes. Well, it depends. I mean, there's short-term upgrades and then there's long-term upgrades, and so
Well, even if we're looking at, most of these are 5 to 10 years, what's our 5 to 10 year cost?
Ryan, do you have anything on that? I don't want to give a number.
So, 5 to 10 years is, I don't know, probably under 10 million. But at some point, concrete's going to start failing down there in the next 25, could be sooner, years. The concrete down there is about 50 years old. So when that starts happening, there's obviously patch jobs you could do to keep it up for, another 5, 10, 15 years. But at some point, there's gonna need to be a replacement on the clarifiers, the aeration tanks, the primary tanks. Everything down there ends up needing to be replaced. And that dollar amount is big in today's dollars, so I couldn't imagine, at the time when that's gonna need to happen, it's gonna be a huge dollar amount.
Yeah, I can
So-
tell you, I just happened because, you know, to bring my budget book. $2.88 million is what's in the capital improvement plan for the sewer department over the next 5 years. So that probably would be a good known, and then looking at the longer term stuff that, you know, the concrete, et cetera, but that's all.
Yeah, after we did the capital improvement plan, we did find out more information though back in April when we were looking into Brainerd Place and how that's going to affect us and being able to run at 100% capacity. Wright Pierce estimated a project of roughly $4 million to upgrade the aeration and blower system. So that one would be the next on the hit list. It is possible to do a shorter term upgrade if we're looking at revamping the system differently. Something, you know, not encompassing all of the piping and all of the PVC piping, the blowers themselves. You know, that could be substantially less, but it all depends what direction we really want to head in, which I think is just a global discussion that we need to have, and I think I need to have Wright Pierce look into all of our options. Since they're our on-call engineer, we have hourly rates that we could use. I think I need to have, you know, a cost analysis of, you know, keeping the sewer plant and what our, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20-year, you know, needs are as compared to, you know, possibly connecting to Mattabasset, going under the river. And possibly those costs make more sense long-term. Obviously, then there's unknowns with charges from Mattabasset on the long run, but it may make more sense at this time. So I think I'll discuss with our finance director and first selectman, and you know, we'll see what projects we want to look into and explore everything.
Just to add on that, just the Brainerd Place was regardless of what the Planning and Zoning Commission does, these upgrades are just, the project alone is pushing us to that threshold of needing these repairs. And it's not upgrades, it's repairs to bring us to the capacity, to full capacity, where right now we're roughly half capacity at the sewer plant. And so it's not just Brainerd Place, but it's the Nordic Spa as well that's pushing us. So as we bring in and increase economic development in town, these are the things that pop up that we have to make sure that our infrastructure is in place that can handle the increase in
And no matter what, there would be maintenance of our pump stations and all of the piping here in town, including cleaning the piping, cleaning the manholes, maintaining every manhole. That would never go away, even with a connection to Mattabasset. We would still need to maintain our own system over here. We would need some kind of sewer department. Yeah, just wanted to let everyone know no matter what, there's costs that stay.
We still own everything till it gets to the river.
Exactly.
When Brainerd Place and the spa come online, what percentage do you think the plant will be at?
At half capacity, pretty much.
Okay.
That's what the numbers are showing, right around, right now we're averaging, I think it's 530,000 gallons per day. We would be right around 600,000 gallons per day.
Okay.
The Nordic Spa is less expected from there, although they are going to be a significant user. In comparison to Brainerd Place is going to be a lot with all of the residents there, and now obviously depending what modifications get approved, we'll see what happens there. there was a difference of 20,000 gallons per day, I believe, with the modifications. So that's significant on its own.
What's Brainerd, what was the old plan compared to the one they're talking about now?
The old plan for Brainerd,
Yeah, like the.
that's about 45,000 gallons per day expected, and I think the newer plan was 68,000 gallons per day.
Okay.
Now, I know, Ryan, one of our challenges we have is infiltration. Are the numbers you're looking at just actual usage, or is that also factoring in infiltration? And if it's including the infiltration is what puts pressure on the plant, are there any other steps we could look at taking? Like, for example, I know there was a storm system that was still tied into the sewer that should have been maybe disconnected. You know, are there any interim steps before we have to do this other full, larger project?
We do have an infiltration issue. When the river flooded last year, we had significant numbers coming through Coave Pump Station that we haven't seen, and that was just because the river, I think, you know, once the river and the water is going over the manholes, there's no stopping the water from coming in. We could obviously raise the manholes, but that's at a significant cost, and then also we're going to affect anyone we have an easement going through, which is a lot of farmland. So raising these manholes isn't ideal if we're going through somewhere they're planting corn or something, and we'd be getting in their way. But that's something to look into, exactly where our vulnerable spots are and where we're getting infiltration. And then there is one private user that I know about that where we have storm rain leaders connected to the storm drain, which dumps into the sewer, and it is privately owned, so it's the store yourself over there on Wolcott and Lower Main, and there was a plan to separate those, but that would require them to do the project that they were going to do, and I think that all that got held up for one reason or another. But they do know about it. So whenever they do work on that building, it is known that they need to disconnect the storm drains from the sewer system.
We good for now?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And can keep you up at night, right?
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan.
Item 10, this was, John, a question for you. In the resolution, there was an item, Portland infrastructure costs, known and anticipated. Outside of water and sewer, I'm not sure what you meant by
I put that there just as an open item. If we have anything that we know of that is pressing and pending and
Okay.
conceivably expensive. But
I-
if you have nothing, that's just a catch-all.
I would just say, I would point to the next one, which is the capital improvement costs. I think that's the catch-all, really.
Yeah, so
Because-
you could scratch 10 then.
Okay. So item 11 was, and I just pulled the 5-year capital plan and identify needs for the town is $120,838,187 of identified capital needs that we could fund. And of that, if you notice, in fiscal year 2025, we funded $1,276,827. So we fund as much as we can when we can, but it is a significant need, and each department in town has definite capital needs. And estimated future annual tax revenues. Now it's difficult. Were you trying to ask about like the anticipation of Brainerd Place and the Nordic Spa?
Well, yeah, again, planning, my thought with this was for people just to start, taking the blinders off and look at the town's big picture.
Mhm.
And part of that big picture is good revenue that
Mhm.
we anticipate too.
Mhm.
That's what I was trying to point to there.
Which is, and this is one of the questions that I have for bond counsel tomorrow, because I can give some estimates for Brainerd Place, and I have plenty of estimates, or the Nordic Spa, but until it's real, it's not real. And when we're talking about a bonding referendum, we need to make sure that everything that we present is factual.
Exactly.
And so I just want to make sure, I don't know if we can use estimates. I don't know if that's allowable, and so that's one of the questions that I have tomorrow. So I'd like to get back to you on that as well.
That's fine.
But I knew where you were going with it. It's
Yeah,
a great point.
The conversation that we're having this evening is really just what I want to be
Everybody.
stewing, everybody to have that stewing in their brain, so that they begin to understand what we try to understand here, which is, there's about 20,000 moving parts, but almost everything is a priority, and I want everybody to understand that.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's great. So why don't we follow up on this at the next meeting? Do you want to revisit it again?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to keep working on, like I said, we got that big meeting tomorrow, and then we'll be putting material together. And everything needs to get reviewed by our attorney or bond counsel and make sure, and our financial advisor is also working on updating figures to show what the debt service would be. So so you'll be able, he's gonna provide a graph that will show the bonds, the debt falling off, and then the anticipated new debt with the schools. And so I think some visuals will definitely be helpful for voters to make informed decisions.
And all I would say, these are just the quick bulleted type of statements I put out, but I think, the item under the request column, I think each one of these just has to be phrased in more of an understandable question, so that people, as they read it, they know what the answers are.
And honestly, John, I welcome help on this if you want.
Yeah, I'll have plenty of time in another week.
Okay, so I'll reach out to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so does anybody have anything else on this before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good. So we'll move on to item 9 tonight, and I think this is just a discussion tonight. I wanted to run this item by you. This is on a waiver at the transfer station for residents of Job's Pond who have been impacted by the flooding. Because of the flooding situation there, a number of items in residents' basements have been totally destroyed, and they're looking to dispose of that. And they were asking for a waiver at the transfer station. And I wanted to see what you all thought of that. I was thinking, and I spoke after conversations with our public works director, determining a threshold of how much how much of a waiver, because obviously you couldn't waive everything. We have limits. And so what we would like to propose is that for every household that was impacted, that's basically the 18 homes of Job's Gate 1, maybe one or two others, it would be a $175 credit essentially to the transfer station, and that would be 1 ton or about 2,000 pounds that they would be able to dispose of at no charge. And so how that would work is that they would have to have a transfer station pass anyway. They would have to have that, and they bring the materials to the transfer station. They do have to pay at the transfer station. And then they would total that up, and we, the board, we would make a motion to refund them for those payments of up to $175. I think it came out to, in total, it comes out to $3,500 maximum. So I wanted to see what you all thought of that. I didn't want to go further with that without a discussion on it.
Want me to make a motion and then we'll
I
discuss?
don't know.
You want to discuss
I don't know if
first? What do you
we
wanna
need
do?
to make a motion on it. I think we could. The motions will be when the residents will be asked to
when we have to
hold their receipts,
credits.
and then we'll put
Do
those
the
on the
credits.
agenda and we'll refund them at that time. But I wanted, if there's if there's consensus that we're in favor of that, I can move forward with that and let the residents know.
And I think the mechanism would be they would hang on to their receipts, right? So the property owner would keep basically the records of what they had spent. And obviously the same rules, they still will be restricted from being able to put anything in there that potentially got contaminated, for example.
Correct.
So all that stays in place. I mean, if it's something we can do to help out, One, they're probably, if they're getting rid of a ton, they're probably getting rid of two, so at least it helps out with the cost. It also helps out a lot of these folks who've been running pumps and have incurred a lot of additional costs over the summer, so.
The only thing,
I'm supportive of it as long as, you know, we've got, I think we have the right controls in place for it.
I completely agree. The only thing, I don't know how you would put this out there, but they're gonna be charged by weight. And you're dealing with potentially waterlogged things, so, you might want maybe just to give them a little primer that, you know, if you have a sectional couch from your basement that weighed 85 pounds beforehand and now it weighs 450 pounds, that if they have the ability to sit it outside for a little while, they could potentially get more waste in their load.
It's a good point. It's an excellent point. I think I will relay that to the residents with just an add, though, that I think we don't want this to go on forever either, so I think maybe the month of September, I don't know, we can go up further, but I think 1 month.
1 month.
No, I think it's
That's fair.
time limit.
Yeah, so dry it out, but you gotta get it in by the end of the month.
Right.
Okay, yeah, fine with it too. Okay, well, thank you all, I think, well, do you wanna make a motion, Sean?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that residents of Job's Gate 1 be, let's see, allocated 107,
Up
up
to.
to 1 ton or up to $175 reimbursement for debris taken from their homes,
I'll second it.
Per household.
per household.
Cool. You get that, Sharon?
Second.
Somebody that doesn't have to come to my house.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. All right, moving on to item 10, appointments to boards and commissions. Before, we have one resignation. Tim Dickerson has resigned from the Veterans Affairs Committee as of July 29th, 2024. Tim had served on there for a very long time, and so I just want to thank Tim for his service over the years. He will be missed on that, but I'm sure he'll still be active in town. Do you have any appointments?
No, I
No?
have
Do
none.
you have any appointments?
None at this time.
All right, then we can move on to item 11, refunds of excess payments.
Make a motion for refunds of excess payments. James P. and Shannon K. Lapila, $237.93.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Motion for a refund of excess payment, Hyundai Lease Titling Trust, $170.77.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Motion for a refund of excess payment, Johanna S. and Louis W. Geralami, $153.21.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Motion for a refund of excess payments, Silas Services LLC, $277.24.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Motion for a refund of excess payment, Christine M. DeLille, $54.02.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Refund of excess payment, Edward W. Solinsky, $22.65.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Refund of excess payment, Concetta R. Solinsky, $16.13.
And I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Mike. All right, status reports, I'll just go through a few things. One, it's a big shout outs to Ryan O'Halpin, our Public Works Director, really making a lot of, it's been a busy summer. We've made a lot of progress. It's crazy. We have paved roads, we have new sidewalks, we have this pumping project going on at Job's Pond. It's a lot. And so I don't know if anyone's been on High Street lately, but it is
Nice.
it's very nice. It is really, really nice. And so the curbing looks great. I think they're all done with the curbing, right? So projects today they finished with.
But
the
there's a
curbing.
danger of falling asleep at the wheel as you approach going down High Street to turn onto Fairview Street, it doesn't bump anymore. I don't know.
We could add speed bumps. Might get some pitchforks too, but. And so the project, the pumps were finally turned on at Job's Pond on Saturday, and we are on track. About 1/3 of an inch a day is what we're looking at from sea level, and we're on track to drop it within 30 days right now to that 61 feet of elevation. Right now we're at 71 feet of elevation. We were up to 15 feet, and we got 10 feet to go. Mother Nature helped us with a lot of that 5. But progress is going on. I spoke with one of the residents this afternoon. I know Mike did as well, and they're thrilled. They're just very happy to be able to dig out after months and months of flooding. So can't thank Ryan enough. Snyder Civil Construction for coming to town and getting this project done for us. It's a big thing, and it's awesome. I want to put this on your radar for the next meeting. The Estuary Transit District, which we are a part of, has requested, we used to be a part of the Middletown Area Transit District, and we used to have a seat on their board. And when they merged into the River Valley Transit District, we, for whatever reason, us in East Hampton didn't sign on to, we still receive services, we still pay dues, but we are not voting members of their board. And their board has made a motion at a meeting that they wanted to invite East Hampton and Portland to be a part of that. And so I received a letter in the mail, and there's a motion that we have to become a voting member of that. It would change nothing, it's just we would have a seat at the table. And so I think it's a good thing for the town. It's another meeting for me, unless someone would like to be our liaison to this.
I think you're good with that.
So don't everybody jump up at once, but maybe think it over. We can talk next time, all right? So I received some very good news on our solar panels today. I spoke with our inland wetlands agent, and at the inland wetlands meeting yesterday, and Andy's here, so topical. Inland and Wetlands approved the necessary permit for our solar panels at the transfer station yesterday, and now approvals go to deep right now, which can take about 3 months, and we are on track for the construction, I believe, in 2025. And so Ryan and I were out there over the summer, earlier in the summer, and I know we're all excited to get these solar panels at the landfill, at the old landfill. And so yeah, that's moving ahead. I know Bobby, you had asked about that, so that's good. And I think I'll stop there. Does anybody have any other updates?
I don't. I went to the Board of Ed meeting last night. Mr. Murphy's in the back corner, so if I missed anything, let me know. It was as usual, an information-packed meeting. First, in their spotlight, they recognized the Educator of the Year and the Para-Educator of the Year. The Educator of the Year is Jenna Ford. She's a kindergarten teacher in Portland. And the Para-Educator of the Year is Danitza Goldburn. And she said she started with Portland in the late 80s, so she's been with Portland schools a very long time. They also showed the new teacher video, which was designed in their new orientation with the teachers, just to get to know them, and they have a great group of new young teachers, and the video just let them all show themselves and talk a little bit about themselves. The freshmen, the students provided their orientation, and there are just 2 things that came out of that. They had their freshman orientation on August 21st, and the band will be playing at Rentschler Field this Saturday, the 7th. Superintendent's report, again, much like we did here, superintendent gave recognition to Howard Rosenbaum and all that he's done for the town and for the Board of Education, and a lot that he did overseeing the Gildersleeve Fund for our students in town. He also provided information that the Department of Administrative Services for the state, the HVAC grant funding that we were looking to get has been put on hold. I don't know to what extent, but it is at this point on hold. Enrollment this year, student enrollment is at 1,215 students. And we still have a few vacancies with paras, but we have a full roster of certified teaching positions, so they're all filled. There's a few other items, but there were two questions that were moved last night and voted on, which one is the addition of 2 additional para-educators. Funding allows it, but these really, the first one is for open choice students, and the second one is for the pre-K program where they're desperately needed. There is also a purchase of a minivan to try to offload some of the students and bring them back into town to driving around our students that need to be taken places. And it was estimated last night a savings of approximately $122,000 from contracting this out to bringing it back in-house. And then there were a few other things, and they went into an executive session, and I went home.
Thank you, John. It's a good update. Does anyone have any other status
Nope.
updates? All right, great. We'll move on then to item 13, which is public comment. And Portland's own Andy Bauer is here, patiently waiting and Andy had reached out to me. Andy is, as you all know, Andy's the chair of Portland's Clean Energy Task Force. And last meeting, this board asked me to send a letter to the governor requesting a special session. I did do that. I shared that letter with you all. Andy reached out shortly afterwards and wanted to provide an update to the board and also the residents in town to shed some light on the increases that are talked about everywhere. So thank you for coming, Andy, and turn it over.
Thank you, Ryan. And as the fifth child of a six-child family, I've always told my brothers and sisters that you save the best for last. Here I am, it's worth the wait. So thank you to Peter. The presentation that I have, there was some question with the fonts. So if this works, it's because of Peter's work. So thank you for that. So I wanted to, educate folks on the electricity bills, and you all have heard over the past few weeks is a question about public benefits charges. So I'm just going to dive right in. So Peter, are you going to do the slide advancement, or the young man? What's your young name, sir?
Elliot.
Elliot. Thank you, Elliot. So if you could go ahead and one click, please. Okay, so here we are this summer, and next click, please. We've had the warmest July on record globally, and hotter temps mean more evaporation, which means more air with warmer moisture, which means more storms with more energy, which are more severe and dump more rain in a shorter period of time. It's no longer a question as to whether there is a connection between climate change and these severe weather events. There's a connection. Whether it's a thin connection or a thick one, it's there. Next slide, please. So when I got involved in climate work 2 decades ago, the types of things that you're seeing on this screen, they were just predictions. How do we have flooding in the middle of Portland? And then poor Oxford, I think it's Derby and Seymour, they got slammed. 100-year storms aren't really not 100-year storms anymore. It's sort of, they're a lot faster. Next slide, please. Okay, so electricity bills. I'm going to come back to those first couple slides, but I thought it'd be good if I just said, okay, $100, what's the breakdown? So if your bill was $100, I want you to look at the bottom section here. This is just the breakout by distribution, okay? And so you have supply, and probably should go into this now. Eversource that's not a place where they make money. They send out bids, they get bids back, they collect the bids, they pass it on to us, okay? So, just a hint, some of you probably have already done this, I've done this, you can find alternative suppliers on Energize CT, okay? And I'll have a link to that later on. And you can find cheaper suppliers out there. You have to watch them, you have to watch your bill every month, because the suppliers are able to offer supply at a lower rate because they're more nimble, but sometimes their supplies go up, so you have to watch that, okay? Just, it's a blessing, but you gotta watch it. Okay, so transmission is controlled by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC. All right, so Eversource doesn't really make those decisions. FERC says you got to do this, you got to do that. Eversource does it. They submit their bills to PURA, and PURA says, okay, you did this, here's your money. Distribution, so transmission, just to be clear, are the huge wires, the huge poles. That's what transmission is. Transmission transmits electricity from like one state to another, or from one region to another. Distribution is what we see along the streets. That's the wires, the transformers, the smaller distribution hubs. That is also something that Eversource and UI, they just do. They say it cost us this much, and then they go back to PURA, and PURA, I think in consultation with the Office and Consumer Council, will say, okay, yeah, you get this much money for the work that you did. Okay, but it's not, so it's in consultation with those agencies. Transmission and distribution is where Eversource, that's their, I guess it's fair to say that's the way they make their money. The more transmission and distribution projects they have, the more money they get. So combined public benefits, and remember, this is spring, so this was 6% of your bill in the spring. Okay, out of $100 you pay $6. Combined public benefits are determined by the legislature. And why don't we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so on an average bill, I'm kind of switching here. So we're off of, still got the percentages, but an average bill is 700 kilowatts. Now, nobody's exactly 700 kilowatts. Some of us are very frugal. Some of us have larger houses, so you're gonna have more. But in the spring, that was $199, roughly speaking, on an electricity bill. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so in July 2024, so just a month ago, all right. Sorry, I should have mentioned this, focused in on it, but this 29 cents, that's where the generation, that's where the entire cost per kilowatt made a change. Now, previous to that, it was only 27 cents. So it only went up 2 cents. Right? That's not a lot, okay? I can tell you that supply charges went down, transmission costs went down, distribution costs went down, but the combined public benefits, that's where you saw your raise. Okay, so an average bill in 2024 was $213. But we know that didn't happen. Next slide, please. Again, we had a hot summer. Okay, next click, please. Connecticut had 4 heat waves. Next click, please. Air conditioning went through the roof. Okay, so those things drove just an inordinate rise in what we were paying for electricity. Okay, go ahead to the next slide, please. All right, so our $213, which probably would have happened in a normal year, maybe not in July, I get that, but you know, that's where we're at. One click, please. That changed to, I mean, you might have, some people just like really, we're going from AC to AC to AC, and it was really hot this summer, okay? So you could have easily doubled your usage, and that changes that 213 to 426, okay? These are just, you know, everybody's bill is going to be different, but this is just an illustration of really, you know, what's driving the cost. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so one of the things with, one of the aspects of public benefits is called a systems benefits charge. So, like 4 years ago, we've got COVID, all right? And, you know, I'm not even sure who did this, the governor, the legislature, Eversource, but it was a good call because people were out of work and some folks were pinched for cash. And so if you don't pay your Eversource bill or your UI, you get your power turned off. But it was COVID, so there was a moratorium on shutoffs, okay? One click, please. Governor Lamont ended that just a few months ago. And so the total cost over those years of COVID was $160 million. And it was applied to the system benefits charge, okay? And it's about $13 on a regular bill, okay? You know, again, out of like 213. Probably 26, I'm just doubling this because of how hot it was in July, so everything doubled. So it's probably 26 bucks out of a 400 and change bill, okay? Still not a lot. One more click, please. Okay, now, the key thing is, this gets paid back because Eversource, we have to pay Eversource up front. But the state is now saying to those users, those homeowners, okay, you're back on your feet. We'll set up a payment plan. And, you know, we bailed you out. Now you got to pay us back. Okay? So this charge, and I doubt it would be like 100%. You know, some people are still in hard times, what have you. But there's a mechanism for this to be recouped. And when it does, we will see credits on our electricity bills. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Millstone, I'll call it the Millstone deal, is, I would say, like it's the number 2 reason why bills did not decrease, or why they, how to phrase this, they could have raised lower. I'm fumbling that. I'm just going to plow right on here. Let me give you a little bit of a history. In 2017, Millstone says we're going to close. Okay, so it's a massive amount of electricity, 40% or so. It's just like they're going to take their ball and go home. That's not going to be good for Connecticut. So it was a bipartisan bill. Republicans and Democrats both voted for it. Republicans and Democrats both voted against it. It is what it is. I'm not a fan of nuclear. However, I understand how the legislature was in a tough spot. You can't just get rid of that much electricity, you know, on a dime. So essentially, the Connecticut General Assembly acquiesced and said, okay. And the quick version is they got a higher rate of return. Now, it gets a little complicated, so if I'm not clear, raise your hand now and I'll try to explain it in another way. But essentially, when prices of other sources are high, Millstone's rate looks better. So they recoup that from Connecticut, but they're also able to recoup that on the spot market, if my knowledge of this is correct, which means if Millstone bids in at 5 cents, and a solar farm bids in at 6 cents, and a natural gas plant bids in at 8 cents, then and that's the top bid, 8 cents. So all those bids are accepted, everybody gets juice, But Millstone gets their 5 cents plus 3 cents because they're all allowed to collect at 8 cents. Okay? So I'm going to come back to that later. That's not the legislature's fault. That is the system that every single legislator was elected into in terms of electricity production. Okay? I will digress just a moment in that I'll say that Senator Norm Needleman, in his, every so often email note to constituents, complained vociferously about that and said something that I've never heard an elected official say before, which is we need to look at the utilities franchise agreement with Connecticut, which I think is a logical thing to do. If I was calling a special session myself, that would be on the agenda item. I would also have to caution that a special session, one day, some of this stuff, folks, takes months to iron out. You want to gather all the stakeholders. I don't know if a special session, even though I just said it, that would be top on my wish list. Let me rephrase that. I think that's something that the legislature should look at during their next session, where you can have public hearings and hear all kinds of input. All right, so one click, please. So that was $653 million. That was applied to the federally mandated congestion charges. Those were originally, the origin of the FMCC is 25 years ago. Southwest Connecticut had a tough time getting power. And the feds looked at it and said, you can't do that anymore. So you need to do something about it. And until you do something about it, we're going to fine you for it. Okay, so that's essentially the quick version of that. So Millstone gets that applied. So on your bill, you'll see a FMCC charge of around 4.4 cents, and the bulk of that is Millstone. Okay, so that's another $43 or $86 more this summer. Next slide, please. Okay, so understanding the public benefits, because this has been in the news a lot, okay, the combined public benefits. All right, we have system benefits, and those are for hardships. All right, so we had COVID, we had the shutoffs, that's being dealt with, we're already paying for that on our bills, but there was a bipartisan effort, at least I'm pretty sure I have my memories correct, it was a bipartisan effort to now, going forward, to have a system, a mechanism for how do we deal with people who have legitimate hardships for their bills. Stuff happens, all right? So we're not going to throw people out in the cold, all right? One of the first slides that I showed you, the Portland Food Bank. The Portland Food Bank is about helping people who are, for whatever reason, need a helping hand. So this is kind of the same thing, all right? So there's that. One click, please. So this another part of so system benefits, that's basically just for hardships. There's another public benefit called the Renewable Energy Investment Fund. Okay, so up until like 2021, like I who have solar, I got helped by the state. Okay, the Renewable Energy Investment Fund funds the Green Bank. And I just want to make clear, without the Green Bank, there's no solar program. So, it's hard to understate just how much this program helps Connecticut. For every $1 we put into that fund, the fund is extremely well managed, and it returns to Connecticut between $6 and $8. That's incredible. Okay, that's private growth. Those are private dollars. Okay, so those are businesses, those are jobs. Again, to call for a private session and in one day decide to make a change to that, I would be very, very hesitant to support that. Another click, please. So the conservation adjustment mechanism is for energy efficiency, okay? And that, so again, $6, it's a minimum. I've seen it as high as $8. So $1 of investment, public money investment, returns $4 to $5 in private investment. You're talking HES vendors, you're talking, you know, all those companies, all those people who are employed, okay, it's worth millions of dollars, the total value. These are good things. Anybody who's had an HES done in their house, so home energy solutions, for those of you who have never heard of it, you know, you're saving money after that. So it's a good thing. Next slide, please. So benefits directly to Portland. One click, please. Valley View, 10 kilowatt solar in 2008, saving us $2,000 annually. So every year, that saves us that much money. Next click, please. At the Biz, energized about a year and a half ago, 12K annual savings. Next click, please. And as you guys know, landfill, we're on our way. Okay, not yet, but you know, that could be 100K annually. Next click, please. So the two solarized campaigns that the task force ran, I estimate saved $250,000 off of all the solar arrays that were installed during that period, because we were knocking $1,000 off each kilowatt. And if you're installing a 5 kilowatt system and 50 to 60 people signed up for this, so you can do the quick math, that's $250,000. And that doesn't count how much folks who have solar are saving through this time period and any time period. You know, when I installed solar on my house, one of the things that I wanted to do, knowing I was growing older, was to just ensure that when I did retire, I had fixed utility costs, and those utility costs are fixed at zero. And that's what solar does for you. So anyway, we ran 2 HES campaigns. I would argue conservatively for $450,000 collectively saved to residents of Portland. You know, usually you have an HES done, and then you're going to save like at least $100 a year. Some people are in the thousands, and then those unlock all kinds of rebates for insurance, windows, this, that, and the other thing. So you beat down the kilowatts that you use, then you are, you know, you're in good shape for July that we just had. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is for anybody who, you know, what can you do? Well, home energy solutions. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in just a bit more. If you can, go solar. There's purchase models. If you don't have funding, there's lease models. If you prefer to purchase but not do a lease, the Green Bank has solar loans, low interest solar loans. Okay. Also, just wanted to remind people, change suppliers at Energize CT. Next click, please. All right, so this is the clean energy page on the portlandct.org website. You can find it underneath the government tab, clean energy. I point this out because under here, clean energy incentives, everything that I've just mentioned as an incentive for a homeowner is on that list. Go there, check it out. EVs, EV chargers, home batteries, okay, everything A to Z from solar to home energy. It's there. My email's on there. If you've got a question, I am not paid to be Portland Clean Energy Chair. It's something that I fell on my head and decided to do. But I do field questions all the time from folks who are not quite sure, like, is this, so I'm happy to answer questions. And on that note, let me just say, my wish for the CGA, there's been a lot of press conferences. I'll go as far as this. I don't think they're very helpful. And there's a huge Facebook page about don't pay your, ban the public benefits charge. I hope what I went over today is reasons to not do that. If people are thinking of not paying their public benefits charge, I would say that logic is faulty. If you do that, and then Eversource gets in touch with you and says, hey, what's up? And you say, I'm not paying, then you can expect to have the lights turned off in your house. If you are a financial hardship situation, that's different. You can call Eversource and say, listen, I lost my job, my spouse is in the hospital, help. They'll help. Okay, but if you are not in that situation, I would not play chicken with Eversource. And the last thing I'll say is I would respectfully ask my colleagues at the state legislature to look for the state organizations to get quality information and facts. You need to think of the Office of Legislative Research as the Simone Biles of that type of device. You need to look at the Office of Consumer Counsel as the Caitlin Clark of advice. You need to look at DEEP as the Tom Brady of that advice. Well, maybe Tom Brady in his prime. It's okay if you want to go with Patrick Mahomes. Okay, either one. But these agencies, they spend thousands of hours researching stuff. They let me sum it up this way. They try really hard to be factual and accurate, because if they don't, then they're liable for litigation. And they know if it's like there's no opinions here, because they throw in a faulty opinion, they're going to be litigated and they're going to lose. So they try really, really, really hard to stick with statutes and to keep all their stuff above board. All right, so thanks for that. Guys, I'm done, so if you want to close that off, but I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might seem worthy.
So I only have a comment or two. I know I was surprised by the electric bills as well.
Yeah.
But I have, I guess, a lot of personal experience with the various programs. I purchased a house that has solar on it. They put solar on it because of a program specifically. We just used TNS to put an HVAC system in, energy efficient one. We used another program for there. That involves a rebate. I have a family member who runs a solar business that does a great deal of home energy audits and employs a number of people out there. And those folks that they do business with enjoy a great deal of savings. So there's a great deal of benefit that I'm aware of these programs, and the $1 to $6. I've seen that personally. I've seen that directly in people I know. I know a number of people in town that enjoy the benefits. So
Sure.
Like taxes that I pay federally and state-wise that go to good programs, I have no problem with that particular fee on my electric bill. I wish it was less. I try to conserve as much as I can. I don't enjoy paying extra if I don't have to, but that's a part of the program. That's a part of the bill that I feel pretty good about, just because I know a lot about it. So I echo what you said, that good information out there is helpful, not only with electric bills, but in politics and other things as well.
Right, yeah. And Mike, I just want to give you that a shout out, because several years ago, when former president was talking about pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords, you offered a motion to this body to basically not do that, and I think, Jim, you seconded. So it's like, that's what we need. It's bipartisan, and beyond that, it's common sense. I'd love to see more of it. Thank you.
One quick, just Andy, thank you. This was great.
Good.
We spoke earlier today,
Yeah.
and you pointed out, just so people understand, what is the difference between, like, all things being equal, how much did it go up for the average person, like percentage-wise? Not, you know what I'm trying to say with the, because a lot of things came down and
Yeah.
the public benefits went up.
Right.
But it was like, it was such a small amount, and I know you did a good job pointing back to the hot July, and that's
Yeah.
what triggered the usage. But what was that, do you know what like a percentage would be?
Okay, so, so absent July, so if you were just going to June, like,
Yeah.
if it was like the same temperature,
Yeah.
it would have gone up approximately, by my calculations, I've heard of $8, mine came out to be 14.
$108?
So like, on an average 700 kilowatt bill,
Oh, it would have gone up
okay,
$14.
the average panned out in the spring to be $199. With the increase in millstone, with the COVID, and with the drop in supply, transmission, and distribution, you would have ended up paying $213. So effectively a $14 increase.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's just important to drive home. It's not
Right.
that much,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things.
Mine was $132 last month.
Your bill?
No, the public benefit. It was 28% of my bill.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the solar panels.
I will say that, one thing I think, small change, but important, there's been clamor to redesign electricity bills like forever. I would like to see, on the electricity bills, something similar to what you see on cigarettes, a box of cigarettes. Where's your supply coming from? If it's natural gas, and not you, but does one know exactly how bad natural gas is? Does one know exactly how long, we're gonna have to watchdog nuclear stockpiles that come out of millstone? Because I'm telling you, it's in the tens of thousands of years. And that's for a plant that's not making any money. It's just, that's gonna be crumbled and long gone. So I hate to, I'm digressing, and it's kind of a downer, but it's our kids who are gonna be dealing with that stuff, and they're not gonna be thanking us for it.
Thank you.
I'll be quiet on that, yeah, okay. Anything else? I know it's late and you wanna go.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Also, I think your letter here was well done. It's like the points that are made, so I just wanted to say, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks,
Good night,
Andy.
everybody.
Have a good night, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks for waiting 4 hours.
All right, who's next
solar
under
panels.
public comment? I think we have to there's a new limit tonight, so you can match Andy's one. Any public comment? Seeing none, I don't see any in the chat. So we'll move on to Board of Selectmen general informal discussion. Is there anything? this evening?
Yeah, Brownstone Ave. Are we ready to go out?
The RFP?
Yeah,
Yeah, almost, yeah. It's almost done, but yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Like, you have any time frame that you want to try to submit it, or is it just?
Like in the next couple of weeks, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't know if this is follow-up items, because I don't see it under there.
Well, we're on general informal
Oh,
discussion.
okay. Yeah, I was just looking to see it.
So shoot, what is it?
The MAC.
That was on my list to talk about tonight. We can, I spoke with Carrie about that today, actually, so, I think I just want to talk to Tom about that,
That's
but
fine.
what I'd like to do, and let's bring it up at the next meeting, we can discuss, we could just make a simple motion, it's what was done in the past by a previous board. We may want to consider either and/or as a special town meeting, or at least a public hearing before we do anything like that, just to weigh in from the public. We could put it to a town vote, we're more than, it's one of the.
I think that's best, because then no one can say that they didn't get a say in the decision.
So why don't
What,
we?
just, which topic? I didn't
Oh,
hear.
I'm sorry.
Oh, the Mack, the antique Mack
Oh, that's right.
truck that the fire department has spent, a great deal of money and time and labor over the years restoring and putting back together. They have asked us to turn over that antique truck to them, as the bulk of the cost or the value of that truck is due to the work that they've specifically put into it. So we've done, a previous Board of Selectmen did that maybe 20 years ago, and they've asked to do something similar today. And so we were discussing, I said, although the previous board just did a simple motion, and I think they sold it to them for $1, Bobby was suggesting that perhaps we should have a special town meeting, put it to a vote, and let the townspeople decide if they want to do that or not.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I think I would agree with Bob
Yeah.
on that.
So why don't I bring that soon, either the next meeting or I was thinking October to get that done.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Good. Anything else?
I have nothing.
All right. I don't have anything for the follow-up items, so I'll entertain a
I
motion.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I second that.
9:01 PM.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Give me a chance to.